All right. So I've got my cat here. Hold on, I'll give you some cat ASMR at my side here. And so this this section that I'm gonna read from today. So just warning, fair warning, I'm not entirely sure what there's a couple streams of thought I've had coming into this. And I'm not sure which way it's gonna go. And what I tend to do is sort of like follow where it feels like there's like the most juice. So I don't know what's going to come up because there's been a lot on my mind today. Um, and this topic is we're on page 173 and it's abuse in the fourth hub. And we are actually, this is the last section in the interruptions and stressors for the fourth hub. And, we've kind of done the reading for rejection and loss, scorn, conditional love and acceptance, like Luke, parents who don't know how to love, perfectionism, and just how all of these things like interrupt and impact hey our ability to connect and to belong in the fourth hub. Yeah. So let's see. So one of the things that coming into the discussion of abuse, and I very mindfully avoided topics that I feel are really deserving of individual professional attention and pointed to them in this book. And I want to re-emphasize that this book in general is about developing your care team. This is not a like medical intervention. This isn't a psychological substitute for individual professional care. If anything, the idea is it's pointing to places that, if they resonate, can initiate your own exploration of these places. And so the take here on abuse I have is really that doesn't work. So, and I'll read the point here. I'll read it. I'll read the section. But I think one of the conflicts about abuse and even mistreatment in any of the interruptions, like in stressors in any of the hubs, is that they're instituted intentionally with the notion that they're going to like support like preparation and growth for a child. And that's actually part of the, and it's been written about, it's in earlier sections of the book. Yeah, it's in earlier sections of the book, this, kind of this notion. But one of the things I just want to call out here is that, for a lot of people, there's a conflict about, was this actually good for me? Did this actually shape me in a way that I benefited from? Did it make me tougher? Did it make me more resilient? Did it teach me to like get my shit together? Otherwise I would have been a lazy like pile of shit kind of thing. And so this is back to the tangle. And this is really important, really, really important, is that this tangle, the hairball, is that our early circumstances and experiences shaped reflexes, and these reflexes, we like apply belief systems to rationalize the existence of these reflexes. And then that forms our notion of reality. And that reality gets projected out into the world, and then the world responds to it accordingly. And as a result of that, that tangle becomes reinforced. So this is part of the belief system. And it is sad. And so, because it is sad to contemplate mistreatment by people that we love, it's worth talking about another layer of this, which is, so this is, I guess this is all kind of coming together naturally. And so, first of all, I want to say the belief system, like, it wasn't good for you, wasn't good for me. And the fracturing of our relationship with ourselves is impacted by believing that in order that like abuse is effective for us. Now, back to exploring this stuff. I've mentioned this in other readings in these other sessions, or whatever call them, is that there's a real, like, I love TikTok. Love is a strong word. I enjoy it. It's certainly one of my drugs of choice. And there is a prevalence of like new age pop psychology in it. And because I just keep watching them, they keep sending me more of them. And a lot, and a lot of this is like, it's manifestation. So I get a lot of stuff like about like manifestation and having a positive attitude. And even this notion of like your vibrational frequency is what's going to attract your life to you. Yeah. So, and it's like, and I think one of the things is it's like, this is kind of, I think this is a stage of life kind of thing. And it's a young app, the demographic on it. It's like it's a certain age where this makes a lot of sense, which is this idea that's like sort of like your vibe is like building your life. And it's not completely untrue, like all truth contains paradox. But one of the things that it leaves out, there is this thing about like your positive thinking, and that if you're, let's see, let's call it the Gilded Age, the Gilded New Age, which is, gilding, for those who are unfamiliar, is to take a, sort of very common base material and paint it with gold leaf. So to cover something like like a common metal or something with gold leaf so that it appears as though it is gold. And so so I think the thing that is like this notion of like positivity kind of at all costs, and that if you are not positive, you're inviting in this terrible life that you now deserve because your vibe sucked. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like, well, which way do it's like, so, your vibe sucks. So let's just say you're angry. And this is going to lead into what we're talking about today here. And the idea of gilding it and being like, well, look on the bright side, versus thinking, why am I angry? Because this is about our relationship with ourselves. Like, this is about respecting, respecting like who and what you are and you're composed of. So as anger is arising, if there's this like double reinforcement effect of like, oh shit, now I'm actually going to be inviting in this terrible life because I have a bad attitude. I mean, it really is a forcing function. It doesn't make the anger go away. It doesn't make the shadow aspects go away. It just sends them deeper and more subterranean so that when if they ever are excavated, um, it's like the refrigerator analogy. It's like there's, you know. So, and I don't want to go too far into that, but what I do want to go into um, is just emotional literacy and the safe expression of like unpleasant emotions. Like, I guess it's like you could objectively call them unpleasant. Like anger. And it's funny because just as I was walking home this afternoon, I received a message from a TPM for Beginners student who received their package for completing the course. And one of the materials in it is a notebook that's very specifically intended for writing in and destroying the pages. So the instruction in the notebook is that the pages are for like writing stuff down and then ripping them up, burning them, destroying them. And I sent a note, and I'll read it actually and anonymize it. Is ripped my first page today, felt good. It does feel good. So the thing is like letting, there's practices in chapter 11. The like specifically in journaling, the discharge practices in here. For like working with anger. But also I actually just want to speak up for even just giving it room to exist. And I'm not going to talk that much about my own practice right now with it. That might be, a conversation for another time. But respecting it, understanding its legitimacy, and understanding that it, like all of the messaging that encourages that, it be like a positive attitude, and that anger is like gross and a quality of somebody who's like a terrible person, really serve a status quo. Yeah, I mean, unrelated, but I'm going to bring it up just because it is surfacing right now, is that, this morning I was thinking about how you want to talk about notions that are like moralized and really fed to people. One of them is like work ethic, that working hard is representative of moral superiority. Whereas like we all naturally want to produce, it's one of the like human nature components. It's the industry versus inferiority. Everybody wants to give, everybody wants to, it is natural. And if it is not naturally arising, it is likely due to fatigue, divergence from like normalcy in terms of like physical or neurodivergence, stuff that's like absolutely not moral or ethical or whatever. But this notion of like working really hard, being like representing superiority, like that's a quality that a person has. And I was just thinking, I was like, who really doesn't work a lot are really rich people. I mean, they kind of like will act like they do, but so it's kind of like this like work ethic thing. And how that's something, I mean, like, why not get mad about that? Like like a kind of a brainwashing that keeps it, like maintaining certain aspects of the status quo, where people are waking up from this right now, but they're confused because they have to unpack the like so-called morality of being like hardworking and reconstructing that as far as being like what hardworking means as it relates to like serving one's own integrity and purpose. So yeah, anyhow, so that's what I'm gonna read. My cat is sitting in front of me, and I'm sure he's gonna be really great this whole time, not move a muscle. It's not gonna happen. But again, so understandably, the notion, like even discussing abuse as it relates to any of the hubs, um, I really want to emphasize that if this has been your experience, how deserving you are of receiving special individual attention for that. I'm one of the things that's been a point of a great amount of pride for me is the number of people who have actually like entered into like different therapeutic modalities from doing their work in Parinama. So yes, so I will read. And once again, the point here is that abuse doesn't work. It's not effective. It's about emotional dysregulation. It's not an effective way to teach people, to build people up, to coach them, to develop them, to support a person's evolution. I mean, and before okay, I thought I was going to jump in. Before I start reading, like an analogy I often use is when, like talking about fitness, I use this kind of, is a thing, is that it's like for going to the gym or working out or whatever activity or whatever. When we don't feel like we're good at it, if we feel like we're out of shape, we don't just feel physically good, going to the gym or going to yoga or going for a run, going whatever physical activity, it's like comparing that to like when we are in a routine, when we're physically fit, when we're feeling really good, that going to the gym is easier. When it feels good, it's easier. When it feels part of something that you can sense is like growing something in you that you feel really good about. But if it's something that feels bad, punishment is just not super effective. It's proven over and over again, but it's like people have a really, so the point is that people have a really hard time letting go of this for good reason, is that we were hurt most likely by people that we loved or trusted. This is why this is a fourth hub thing, is it's really hard to let go of the notion that abuse serves no purpose other than hurting and harming, is because we hold on to it. When we hold on to it, that there must have been some form or some aspect of it that had like intent, purpose, meaning, like something positive in it. So, and goes back into the full circle of this is the hard part of this, or a hard part of this, and also that what we're getting into now in the Parinama sort of hairball tangle is the belief systems associated with reflexes, and we're looking into the belief about whether like harsh or cruel or abusive or intense treatment, it's like, yeah, well, that made me the person I am today. It's like, all right. I'm gonna read. So abuse. So spanking, yelling, excessive punishment, or any other, I wish I could move this over, but Luke is like literally sitting on it. Maybe Luke wants to come over and cuddle with you while I read this. He's trying to figure out how to teleport himself onto your lap. All right. So once again, spanking, yelling, excessive punishment, or any other type of abuse causes interruption in all the hubs. But potent interruption is caused to the fourth hub when we're told that abuse is done out of love. The effect of abuse is magnified when we're told that it's done as an act of love. This hurts me more than it hurts you, or I'm doing this for your own good. When spanking or excessively punishing, these are lies. Psychologist and child development specialist Eileen Kennedy Moore points out that children don't learn from suffering, but by doing things right. Supporting children in growing their abilities rather than through punishment and hurt is how they develop. I'm going to take a little gong on that. It's really, and this is just, this is a sad notion, because there is, to really grasp this, it means coming to terms with the fact that people we love and trusted did things that were not in our best interest. And this is part of us separating out some of this tangle and these tendrils that create a conflict in our relationship with ourselves, which is, and I'm going to repeat myself a few times here, and I apologize if this feels kind of repetitive, but I just want to emphasize that internalizing a belief that you need punishment, that you need criticism, you need excessive punishment for your own good. It's internalized, and what we really want to do is we want to tease that tangle open. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that there isn't room for like kind of directed compassionate behavior. But I guess what I want to go, like, actually what I'd rather emphasize here is that it's really hard, and this is something that's part of the fourth hub interruption, is to comprehend how, there's, like a parent's limited emotional capacity, their limited capacity for any number of reasons, that the fear of not being fully and completely loved, and the fear of not belonging in our family, the fear of not being safe in our family, that like we eat that, we swallow that, in some cases, not everybody, the folks who are impacted by this, in order to maintain this sense of safety, this sense of belonging. So this is, if this arises a lot of emotion, and and I'm not even calling it emotion, if there's like a lot of like arising, I'm just gonna like, this is definitely something where I would encourage getting some one-on-one support to discuss. And this can be with a trusted friend that can hold space for this, trusted adult mentor, a therapist, if possible, if that's available for you. Highly recommended in this. Highly recommended. So I'll keep reading. I interviewed Cindy, who grew up in a home where her father told her, Luke just hopped off. Her father told her, only the people who love you will be critical because they're taking the risk to help make you better. She believed this, but found it to be painfully untrue when her first marriage fell apart under the weight of her endless judgment and criticism. Quote, I thought I was being helpful. My husband. I thought I was helpful. It's a typo. You go. I thought I was helpful to my husband by pointing out all his flaws, like my parents had done with me. It wasn't until it was too late that I could see what I was doing. Craig saw me as a monster, and in the end, I'd done so much damage that I couldn't rebuild the trust. I don't hold it against him. It's been many years, and I still feel terrible about my behavior. Although Cindy has been in therapy for the past 2 decades, she told me, I still feel the most comfortable with people who are judgmental and critical. But now it's conscious, and I can manage this by identifying the red flags. End quote. Verbal and emotional abuse can also be in the form of mean teasing, hurtfully pointing out vulnerabilities and sensitivities as jokes and telling children or adults they're too sensitive when they respond with hurt or anger. Any mental or physical abuse that interferes with the personal boundary of a child will cause interruptions. Physical, emotional, and excessive behavioral modification are all damaging to the spirit and psyche. Essentially, consequences should be used for boundaries, and challenges and encouragement should be used for growth. Excessive punishment is a dirty fuel source for motivation that creates a lot of pollution. Yeah. Yeah, the mean teasing, I think we get into this a little bit later, maybe in the next hub. This thing where um there's kind of like this notion of, was it like there's a term for it. It's when it's like funny that somebody's like shitting on themselves, like that they're being it's not, I don't know, it'll come to me. But this kind of thing about like mean teasing as representing almost like as an expression of vulnerability, where you're talking about your flaws like really openly, right? And it's saying like, well, I've got all these things, and I think that I mean, I've said this before, that it's kind of like, well, what if it's like, what about the cringe of somebody unapologetically talking about the things about themselves that are extraordinary? Yeah. Yeah. So I guess in this, I just, like as a follow-up here, I would say that, um, or in summary, In summary, that to have anger, grief, sadness, it just, like, to have anything arise in this is, makes a lot of sense. And so I wanna just offer up some practices here, um, as support for this. And one of the most key ones here, and these are in chapter 12, chapter 11, um, the journal prompts, so page 277. 277, but look, but I'll tell you just the real, like, the fundamentals of the practice. You can do it right now, if you have a journal, paper, whatever handy, is, like, write what's arising. So and the prompt being like, "Hey, like, what do you have to say what do you want to say right now?" If you could say anything, like, or even like, "Who is there somebody out," just saying, like, "Is there somebody I wanna say something to, and what is it? What is this thing?" And just, like, saying, like, "Tell me more about that. I'd like to hear more about that. I'd like to know more. And what else? And what else? Tell me more." And keeping it sort of coming. And then when once it sort of, like, runs its cycle, is to rip up the pages. Burn them, destroy them. However, because the key thing here is this isn't performative, this isn't a piece of art, this is actually about processing, this is about you, this is for you. This is important because everything there also needs to be a separation of things being validated only if they can be viewed by others. Your experience is absolutely extraordinarily valid, important, direct experience with things, and we're going to get more into that as we progress. Is your direct experience sans validation, and being able to process in a sense where there is no audience. It's just you feeling and letting it rip, and then destroying it. There will never be anyone who sees it, and it will be gone, that it flows through you and out. It's another important part of this, is that the fear of anger, the fear of, like, destructive thoughts is that they represent an action that's just being held back. They represent a impending destruction that you're holding back from happening, when it's just an arising thought to process through, to pass through, and then once it's released, it's like it can just be seen as a story, as just like, what is it? Feelings, thoughts aren't facts, feelings are facts, or whatever. Anyway, so that's that. We made it. We made it through abuse. And yeah, and I just wanna I mean, I guess the feeling that's arising in me right now is that is like a swell of love and just kind of warmth and affection, and kind of like sort of adoration and openness for, like, for your bravery to feel. I'm kind of like imagining you and seeing you having your thoughts and your feelings completely validated by you, by you, you know? finding it in yourself to really watch things surface that are surprising and maybe things that you don't really want to have surface, and letting them go through you, letting yourself be sad for a while, letting yourself get angry for a while, and letting it pass through. The Gilded Age, it just means that we paint over the stuff and eventually the gold leaf flakes off, and eventually people, like, the thing is that the low grade subterranean pulse of suppressed feelings always is sort of like beating behind people's eyes, sort of like speaking from behind their words, is like acting from behind their actions. Like in there, I'd say our. So it's like, it's just the cleanness, like it's like hygiene. I call it emotional hygiene in the book, which is like what we're doing is we're kind of cleaning the stuff out. And this is one of the things that was a big part of my own experience in the very early days of this, as it related to my daily yoga practice, as I was seeing this stuff kind of get cleaned out in a very particular way. So there's that. Anyhow, so that's it for today. Sending you so much love. Yeah, I'm sending you a lot of love, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thank you for all your interaction with this. It means so much to me that you are along for the ride. Just feeling future you, feeling you right now, feeling whatever, just the notion that we're really in this together. And this is the work of becoming more fully alive in all ways, to experience this very ephemeral, extraordinary thing of our life. Let's do it. Let's do it. Come on. Let's do it. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.